Welcome back to a discussion that raises a lot of issues and the volume of a lot of voices. We're talking about the State of the Union. We're talking about the various plans that President Obama has laid out. You mentioned at the beginning, he mentioned the price of gasoline coming down. That's actually in spite of the fact that he refused drilling rights in many public lands. And
I want to hear Chrissy
the
answer
Keystone Line. Are we talking about that? Are we going to talk about the Keystone Jobs bill that we heard?
You can't deny that being
nauseam?
energy independent is good for the country.
We're doing great in energy production. It's not in spite of it. We were plugging along
But he didn't,
the entire
he didn't
time.
okay any drilling rights. He basically
and
said no.
we're still producing. That's the great thing.
Well,
that's the great thing. So maybe he has a crystal ball that works a little bit better than yours.
A lot of the energy production that's going on today that's made the United States energy independent was approved by the previous administration over the objections of liberal Democrats and environmentalists. So technology is such today where we have the ability to hydrofrack for not only natural gas but oil. And to me, and to most Republicans, it's a national security issue. To be energy independent and to be less dependent on foreign oil, particularly when it comes from the Middle East, can only be a good thing.
Especially in today's world. We'll talk a little bit about ISIS and the...
I mean, but if it's in your backyard, you'd have a little bit of reservation. We still have neighborhoods that we can drive through called the Love Canal that still sit vacant. There are people that are along the Hudson that had, barrels of toxic chemicals.
Christy,
the people that that want to cut through people's backyards.
Hydrofracking is not a new technology.
I get it,
They've
but
been
guess what?
using it
We
for
don't
over
know.
50
But
years.
the jury
You can't
isn't
compare
out on the
Love
health
Canal.
issues
You
yet.
cannot
years later.
compare
The jury
Love
is not
Canal.
out on it.
You
It's
cannot
not.
years later,
compare
the jury's
Love
not
Canal
out.
It's not.
to oil.
It's not.
You cannot
You can't
compare
compare
nuclear energy to oil.
Hydrofracking.
And if we had continued down our line with nuclear power, you look over in France and they're using nuclear power and they're doing really well with it. New technologies for safety, for breaking down the waste, reusing the waste, pulling more energy out of the waste. But it takes, 7 to 10 years to build one plant. Had we not given up on that.
I'm still not certain. And as a cancer patient, I wouldn't want to take that risk with my life.
And as a cancer patient, I'm fine with it.
Perfect. That's good on you. It's not good on me.
And it's good on me. It's good on my family because it is nuclear power is clean. It's the science.
Wow, that is so
In this country, nobody's ever died from
I
a
can't believe
nuclear
it.
power accident.
But Bill, before we left, I asked Christy about the daycare thing. Really, truly, seriously,
Yep. It's been proposed before.
I want to hear your opinion on government funding daycare. I really want to hear it.
It's one of the things that actually is being looked at even here in New York State, universal pre-K, right?
Yes.
It's coming part of the legislation. We've learned that children in inner cities at times don't have the proper parents at homes or guidance. So we're losing those kids at a young age to crime and just not to being properly educated, to go to college, to get jobs, to be taxpayers. So starting younger and getting them into funded programs like this, whether it's daycare or universal pre-K.
Do you see that universal pre-K taking the job of the daycare? Because now I'm talking about daycare, and you're talking about universal pre-K.
This will be
two
almost
different things.
for sure. But in many instances, especially here in the state of New York, they are the same.
And we already
They
have
are the same.
free pre-K. We already have that free in New York
Actually, we
State.
don't.
Yes,
Actually,
we do.
we don't.
Yes, we
Actually,
do.
we don't. It's not
Yes,
free.
we do.
It's
It
not
is.
free in all the places.
Both of my children
It's not-
attended.
That's great for you.
And this is in Western New York and Buffalo.
Okay.
There is free
That's
pre-K
great for you. It's not
in Western
everywhere.
New York. And
It's not everywhere.
You know what? I'm sure you're right. It's not everywhere. We can't be everywhere.
Okay.
I wish we could be everywhere.
Okay, so do you want my answer or not?
I've got a question.
Sure.
I want you to define one term for me, and then we'll discuss what comes after
I'm going
that.
to hold on to my chair for this one.
Define for me the word socialism.
Well, that you're taking my interpretation of it. So
Yes.
I will
What is
digress.
socialism?
I'm not biting on that. I'm not biting on that.
Okay, well, I can define it.
Sorry.
Socialism is where the government,
I'm not biting on that
the
with you,
government
Phil.
gets involved in just about everything in terms of controlling how people spend their money and how people earn their money and basically they control everything. Socialism the government controls everything. And it's been tried, everywhere in the world it's been tried, it's been a failure.
But we are
And
not
we're
socialists.
heading in.
We are not
No, but we're heading in that
socialists.
direction.
We are not
He
socialists.
proposed free education. We already have, health care being regulated and controlled by the government. We have.
But your
we're
colleague
trying
Carl
to tell
Palladino
people-
talks about the low and poor attendance rates and the low graduating rates.
Yep.
So Phil, how do you suggest that problem be solved?
I think it's a problem that
It's
we
a
need
local
to address.
problem, number one.
It's
Number
a
one.
Not a
national
local
problem.
Let me
Education
say,
is
It's a
a
national
national
problem.
education.
I don't think we found the answer yet, but I think we need to keep
No,
trying.
the problem with the school system in Buffalo and in most urban centers around the country is not a lack of funding. We spend over $23,000 per pupil
Yeah.
in the city of Buffalo. Compare that to $7,000 or $8,000 per pupil in the suburbs.
in
The
private
problem,
schools, too.
That's right. The problem is a social problem.
Yes.
It's a cultural problem. And until we realize that and admit it, that we have structural problems with our families, that we're not going to solve the problem of education in this country.
Throwing
money at it is not the
gonna make it
answer.
worse.
And that's the answer
to
that
that
government
point,
has.
socially though, but socially though, now in jumping and springboarding off of what you just said, for the government to fund a daycare for a single mother that's trying to take care of her 3 children, doesn't that fall in line with
Why
it?
does it have to be the government's job
But
to
Phil,
do
let
that?
me say this. First of all, the president did not propose to fund daycare. What he proposed was a $3,000 tax
cut.
credit.
Which tax credits I'm always in favor of.
Exactly. So, and the president is a master at using the English language and creating the perception of one thing. But, and I told Christy before we came on, I actually
Like
printed,
all
I
politicians.
printed the transcript of the State of the Union address, and when you get past the style, which he was terrific on, and you actually look at the sum and substance of what he said last night, he talks about free daycare, but that's not what he proposed. He proposed a $3,000 tax credit. But here's the fundamental difference between Republicans and Democrats. When you look at what Barack Obama said last night, when he's talking about income inequality and how the middle class is not benefiting from the recovery of the economy, this happened on his watch. He's been president of the United States for 6 years. The issue is this. Do we accept Barack Obama's vision of our country where the economic pie is stagnant and it's fixed, and we have to redistribute who shares and what percentage of the pie? Or do you accept the Republican vision where you can grow the pie?
We need
you
to
can
give
grow
Christy-
the pie.
wait a minute,
You can
Christy,
grow,
a moment.
You can grow
But
the
listen,
pie so everybody
We
can
need to give Christy
can
a moment to
benefit.
answer to that.
They've had
just
the
got about a
minimum
minute
wage.
left.
They've
We're
had the
running out of
minimum
time.
wage being proposed, and the Republicans were the one that kept jamming it down, pulling it off the floor.
But Christy,
That's not. So using the
but
term
who pays-
stagnant,
but who-
stagnant. They had the votes.
First of all, most people that are in minimum wage jobs are not supporting a family.
Right. Yeah,
Most of them are
yes.
college kids
Wow.
and students.
You
Now,
are
that's-
taking
no,
some
Christy,
liberties
that's-
there,
No,
Vic.
no,
You
that's
are taking
minimum
some
wage
liberties
is
there
not
because
for
guess
heads of
what?
households.
You're looking within the Western New York. I can tell you there are many people living in Atlanta, Georgia, Detroit, Michigan, who are earning minimum wage and they are trying to support
Well,
a family.
that may be true in the Obama economy because after
It's
after we-
reality.
after
They've been
we-
doing. They were doing it going back to Ronald
all
Reagan.
all this growth in jobs are in minimum wage jobs. So, but let
Talking
me-
about
but-
language,
but-
which I find just amazing, the Republicans failed to remember that there was a president that stood with Navy men saying, "Mission accomplished."
Let me
Change
say-
the
let me
subject.
say-
You're changing the subject. That's,
No,
that's,
but
that's invalid.
let me say this about the minimum wage.
I'm not changing the subject.
There's no free lunch. And
All
to,
right,
and to
folks,
suggest,
there's no free lunch, and can't we all just get along?
but who pays for the
But
minimum
we
wage
have
increase?
to, Vic, we
Right.
have to go to commercial.
Okay.
As much as I love hearing the two of you go at it, commercial break.
I find you just salute and be done.